Morning light spilled across downtown glass as you guided the black sedan through the quiet streets. It was your first day as chief. No escort, no fanfare. Just the hum of the city you'd sworn to rebuild. You wanted to see it from ground level again, the way you had when you were still on patrol. At the stoplight, you studied the precinct tower in the distance. The badge on your seat gleamed faintly, its platinum edge catching the sun. That badge wasn't just a symbol. It carried the weight of every hour you'd spent earning respect the slow way. The radio whispered about morning traffic, a hint of construction, a community event you'd approved months ago. You smiled, thinking of how many pieces had to fit together to keep a city breathing. Then the rhythm broke. A siren rose behind you. You slowed, eased to the curb, hands steady on the wheel. A patrol cruiser rolled up close enough for its lights to fill your mirrors in red and blue. For a moment, it was only the pulse of color and the echo of the siren fading out. An officer approached, young, confident, a clipboard tucked under one arm. You recognized the stance instantly, the slightly tilted chin, the cautious hand near the belt. You'd trained dozens like him. "Good morning," you said through the open window. "License and registration," he replied, voice clipped. You reached for the documents, keeping your tone calm. There was no reason for tension. Routine stops happened every day. Still, a twinge of unease traced your thoughts. You'd built policies to make these encounters smoother, safer, grounded in respect. Yet here you were, on the other side of the glass, feeling the imbalance again. As he glanced over your ID, something changed in his eyes. Uncertainty, then a quick recovery into command. "Ma'am, you in a hurry? Didn't notice you rolled that stop sign." You met his gaze. "Actually, I came to a full stop." He gave a small chuckle, the kind that carried more assumption than humor. "Sure you did." Behind him, traffic whispered past. A woman walking her dog slowed to look. Two teens on bicycles stopped at the corner, curiosity alive on their faces. It struck you how quickly a private moment became a public scene. The officer sighed, flipping your license between his fingers. "Look, I'll just check this and you can be on your way." He stepped back toward the cruiser, tapping at his tablet. You waited, eyes tracing the reflections in your mirror. The passing cars, the rising crowd, the small shapes of phones and hands. The world watched everything now. You'd made sure of that through the city's transparency initiative. And still, as seconds stretched, the feeling of being tested hung in the air. You thought of your father, a patrol sergeant long before body cameras existed. His words lingered like quiet counsel. Respect begins before anyone salutes you. Hold your composure and you hold the room. You breathed in, steady. The morning wasn't going to define you. Yet something told you it was about to test every lesson you'd ever learned. Because when the officer returned, the clipboard no longer held only your license. It carried a question that would shift the entire day. "Ma'am?" he said, hesitating for just a heartbeat. Mind stepping out of the vehicle for a moment. The world outside seemed to still, sunlight freezing on chrome and glass. You glanced at the badge lying beside you, its platinum edge now hidden by shadow. And in that instant, before the next words left your mouth, the story truly began. The garage under City Hall hummed with early traffic. Delivery vans reversing, clerks rushing, the metallic echo of morning routines. You parked quietly, a low hum of the engine fading beneath fluorescent light. The first day as chief was supposed to begin with a quiet walkthrough, nothing more. Meet the staff, review security feeds, greet the mayor by noon. The elevator doors slid open to the main lobby. Glass walls, marble floors, and a reception desk that stretched like a command post. A new security team had been rotated in last week. You'd read their files but hadn't met them yet. A guard stepped forward, uniform crisp, tone clipped with protocol. "Excuse me, ma'am. Visitor badges are on the left." You smiled politely. "I'm expected upstairs." He frowned at your untagged lapel. The name you gave it. His tablet blinked back blank, not seeing it. "You here for an appointment?" You reached into your purse for the slim bronze folder, documents for the mayoral briefing. But the guard's hand came up. "Sorry, can't bring personal items past this point." For a moment, silence filled the lobby. Clerks slowed near the turnstiles. A janitor's mop paused mid-swipe. The rhythm of the morning hesitated. "I understand you're doing your job," you said evenly. "Could you call the chief's office? They'll confirm." The guard hesitated. "Chief's meeting is private today." You exhaled. The word settled, oddly sharp. "Private." The second guard joined him, voice lower, almost apologetic. "We've had imposters try to walk in lately. You'd be surprised what people claim." A thin laugh from a receptionist traveled across the marble. "Some folks will say anything to skip the line." It wasn't anger that rose, it was the echo of memory. "Your father again. Hold your composure and you hold the room." You nodded once. "All right. I'll wait." Minutes passed. The clock above the security booth ticked loud enough to feel staged. Phones glowed. Emails, side glances, quiet murmurs. You could almost sense the story forming before it existed. Then, from the far hallway, a familiar voice. "Chief? They didn't tell me you were coming down here yourself." It was your assistant, breathless, holding a stack of morning reports. She froze when she saw the guard standing between you and the elevator. The taller guard's expression changed first, eyes widening at the word chief. The other followed, confusion giving way to realization. Your assistant extended the bronze folder. "Your schedule, ma'am. The mayor's waiting upstairs." The lobby's hum fell silent again. Somewhere behind the desk, a phone stopped ringing. The receptionist's face paled. The janitor straightened his mop. You accepted the folder, calm. The embossed city seal caught the light. A clear, undeniable symbol. "I think we're clear now," you said softly. "Please continue your checks. Just remember, sometimes the person you're screening built the system you work in." The guard swallowed hard, stepping aside. "Yes, Chief." As you passed through the turnstile, the air felt different, thicker with the weight of realization. You didn't glance back, but you could feel every eye in the lobby following, the quiet lesson hanging heavier than any reprimand. You reached the elevator, doors gliding open in polished steel. Inside, you allowed a single breath of release. The reflection looking back at you carried both calm and command, the balance your father had taught you to hold. Still, beneath that calm, one thought stirred. If the lobby doesn't recognize leadership, how will the city? And as the elevator rose, a single line surfaced in your mind, a promise more than a warning. Today, respect will be taught, not requested. The elevator rose with a hush, a silver capsule carrying your reflection upward, platinum pin winking at your collarbone, bronze folder pressed against your ribs, the engraved watch at your wrist ticking like a metronome for the day. Floor numbers blinked by 6, 7, 8, and with each chime, you felt the city's machinery slot into place. Clerks filtering through magnetized doors, dispatchers warming up consoles, the steady respiration of a government building learning your cadence. When the doors opened to the executive level, cool air met you, oak-paneled corridors, framed commendations, the distant murmur of a receptionist greeting arrivals in a voice perfectly pitched for diplomacy. Your heels found the rhythm of the carpet as your assistant guided you past a frosted glass wall where the city seal hovered like a moon, etched lines of laurel and lighthouse. You carried the morning's lobby scene with you, the pinch of it not as anger, but as focus. Respect taught, not requested. Today, you'd do it without raising your voice. "Chief," your assistant whispered, passing a tablet under the bronze folder. "Schedule, 9:30 with division heads, 10 with the mayor, noon with procurement. Media at 3 if we greenlight the body cam update." Noted. You clicked the side button on your watch, its backplate engraved with crisp block letters from academy graduation. Earn the badge twice, once in training, once every day after. Your father had insisted on the engraving. He believed reminders should live where you couldn't ignore them. The conference room opened like a stage. Mahogany table reflecting a chandelier's restrained sparkle, folios placed at precise intervals, a tray of crystal water glasses aligned with surgical neatness. The department heads were already seated. A few stood as you entered, a few didn't. Every city has its choreography. You could always tell who learned the steps and who decided the song. "Good morning, Chief," said the deputy commissioner, handsome in a steel blue suit that telegraphed assurance. He gestured to the head chair. "We took the liberty of starting with pre-briefs. Thought we'd keep things moving. Appreciated." You placed the bronze folder by your seat and let your gaze circle the room, warm but undeniably present. Eyes flickered down the line. Legal counsel with a pen balanced on a notebook margin. Budget director in a charcoal tie. Captain Ames in pressed navy, jaw set. A file already open in front of him like a shield. Ames had the familiar aura of a man who ran on plans drafted overnight, and signatures wrestled at dawn. the kind of leader whose pulse synced with radio static. He nodded toward the seating chart. We've prepared an onboarding summary for you, Chief, so we can swiftly orient you to ongoing operations. High-level items for your review. Policy, chain of command, procurement thresholds, that sort of thing. A faint lift at the word orient. You took your seat without using the armrests. A small habit learned long ago. Never look like you need the furniture to sit in your own place. Your platinum pin caught a slip of light and threw it across the lacquered wood like a tiny comet. Thank you, Captain, you said. Let's begin with the body cam policy and the contract amendments for storage and access. Transparency remains priority one. Budget cleared his throat. We do have preliminary figures, but some of the prior assumptions may need adjustment, particularly the architecture you proposed during confirmation. The ingestion layer cost is non-trivial. I'm aware you tapped the bronze folder. We've secured external funding, a community oversight foundation and federal pilot. The letters are in here. Across from you, legal blinked. You've prearranged funding. Contingent pledges, you said, triggered upon my swearing in and assigned transparency charter. No cost to the city until the metrics deliver. A murmur, contained but present. Someone lifted a glass and set it back without drinking. You felt another subtle current slide through the room. Interest battling instinct. The old reflex to keep things as they were. Ames cleared his throat, using tidiness as authority. Chief, with respect, we've run departments for a long time. The rollouts we manage require buy-in. If we move too quickly, we risk confusion among line officers. We wouldn't want avoidable misinterpretations. There it was, the polite form of a barricade. You accepted the glass your assistant set near your elbow and did not drink from it. Clarity prevents misinterpretation, you said. Not delay. He held your gaze. Somewhere in the paneled wall, a security feed hummed faintly, the building's silent witness. You could imagine the grid of camera squares in the operations room downstairs. Elevator bays, lobby lanes, external steps catching the morning sun. The lobby sequence would already be on a server. The transparency policy would make it searchable by case number and timestamp. You had designed the architecture in your head long before you had a budget line. Next, you said. The procurement director slid a folder across the table with practiced smoothness. There's the small matter of fleet renewals. We've shortlisted vendors. Some relationships go back years. Old routes. Old loyalties. You opened the folder and skimmed through the names. On the final page, your gaze snagged on a line of numbers that felt off. Maintenance contracts carved like little tributaries feeding the same lake. You let your fingertip rest on the signature block. A watch tick, another. You didn't need to raise your voice. We'll revisit these, you said, and we'll do it with an independent audit present. A chair squeaked softly. Budget's pen stopped moving. Ames's jaw set just a fraction tighter. The chandelier hummed in electrical agreement. You let the quiet hang long enough to rearrange the air. Then you leaned back, lifting the bronze folder, its seal imprint deep as a thumbprint in wax. I have something to share before the mayor arrives. Your assistant stepped forward with another item, this one slim and matte black. You hadn't planned to use it yet, but the morning's lobby miscue had given you a taste for clarity. She presented it to you and you turned it in your palm, the way someone appreciates a good piece of hardware. Then you placed it on the table and clicked the hinge. Inside, secured in a velvet cutout, rested a card the color of night with edges that caught the light. Your Black Centurion card. Issued for official travel and emergent procurement under federal grant authority. Certain pilot purchases will move through my office, you said. Auditable, pre-approved, time-boxed. No friend favors, no legacy waivers. Every line visible to oversight. The card was less about money than signal. A few at the table understood that immediately. The shorthand of power that spoke in documentation and chain of custody logs. Others only saw a metal rectangle. Symbols are only useful if they trigger the right synapses. Your father used to say, carry what translates. You let your eyes drift, not over the people but the edges of the scene, the beveled corners of the table, the city seal embossed into the leather blotters, the discreet camera dome in the corner ceiling that everyone pretended not to notice. Phones lay face down, but you knew at least one was recording. Notes app open, microphone on. People trusted their memories until consequences required transcripts. And then the moment you knew was coming arrived, wrapped in a smile. "Chief," Ames said, measured and smooth, "we appreciate your enthusiasm. We just want to ensure we don't project the wrong tone to our teams. Sometimes a softer touch helps. Some of our folks, well, they respond better if they feel consulted first." Consulted as pretext for veto. You held the line of his smile with a steady gaze. A younger version of you would have answered the smile with a sharper edge. Today, you chose a different blade. You set the bronze folder flat and opened it. The city seal rose on the first page, flanked by the mayor's letterhead and the council's resolution number. Below, precisely worded, "Effective this date, the chief of police is authorized to implement transparency reforms pursuant to federal pilot, with direct authority over procurement related to data, integrity, storage, and public access." Signatures like a parade, mayor, council president. Federal liaison, yours. Consultation, you said gently, is built into the charter. Veto is not. No one moved for 3 breaths. Then legal's pen tapped the paper in small surrender. You closed the folder with a sound soft as a period. And because a day built on clarity required ballast, you let the room drift for a heartbeat and stepped into the memory that shaped your spine. Your father's hands were steady on the wheel of a sand-colored squad car. Summer heat trembled in mirages across the blacktop, and your knee stuck to the vinyl seat as you watched him drink from a sweating paper cup. He had just been passed over for promotion, the kind of almost that etches lines at the corners of a good man's eyes. He didn't complain. He drew a line on a notepad, wrote the words "evidence first," and slid it to you. As the sting burned, you remembered your father's voice in a courtroom years ago. "Never raise your hand, raise your evidence." "Paper is slow," he'd said, "but it outlives the shout. Bad days pass, and when they don't, you pass them with better work." The conference room drifted back around you like a lens coming into focus. You were older now than he'd been in that memory. In your pocket, the watch he never got to see you wear ticked like agreement. "Let's proceed," you said. The door opened a crack as your media liaison slipped in, cheeks flushed with urgency. "Chief, small heads up. A morning clip is circulating from the lobby. It's under a minute. Angle's not flattering." A quiet pulse moved through the table. Budget looked almost relieved to have numbers replaced with narrative. Legal poised a finger over the screen of her phone. Ames's eyes sharpened. Problems were a terrain he understood. "Security feeds?" You asked. "Archived, time-stamped?" "We've requested the files." The liaison held up a tablet, paused on a thumbnail of your profile at the turnstile. The bronze folder in your hand, a guard mid-sentence. No audio, just the choreography of misunderstanding. You looked around the room, not at the image but at the faces watching it. "Let it circulate," you said. A murmur of surprise. "Chief PR, we don't manage truth by hiding it," you said. "We manage it by context. This afternoon we'll release the transparency charter, the procurement framework, and the body cam pilot. We'll pair the documents with a simple statement on expectations at security checkpoints. Respect is circular. It begins at every door. A breath of something like respect found purchase in the room. Not unanimous, but enough." Ames leaned forward, elbows precise on the table. "And if the lobby clip gets framed as leadership not following rules?" You angled your watch toward you, as if consulting time were the same as consulting patience. "Then the rules will be printed clearly on the wall by close of business, and we will follow them together." That's what leadership looks like. Silence again, of the productive kind this time. The meeting found its rails. Action items queued themselves in disciplined order. Draft language for the charter rollout. Schedule an independent audit for fleet contracts. Formalize the procurement card's usage policy with oversight login credentials visible to the council. Your assistant tapped notes in tacit rhythm, the engraved watch-keeping time. From the hallway, the mayor's voice approached. Familiar cadence, practiced warmth. The civic music that announces cameras will soon exist nearby. The door opened wider. "Chief," he said, smiling. "Ready to make a little news today?" "Only the useful kind," you said, standing. He moved to shake your hand, then noticed the bronze folder and laughed softly. "You came loaded." "Evidence first," you replied. The mayor's smile turned approving as he pivoted to the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're fortunate. Our city got a chief who can move fast and keep receipts." Light banter broke the surface tension. Coffee cups lifted. A joke landed. Even Ames allowed himself a thin smile. But as the mayor turned, he lowered his voice for you alone. One thing. Procurement flagged a contract set to renew at noon. Something about fleet maintenance. I told them not to sign until you've looked. Good, you said. We'll freeze it, audit it, and publish the audit schedule. The mayor nodded. I knew we hired the right person. You felt the room's eyes on the exchange. Trust and expectation wrapped themselves like thread across this table. No single strand was strong, but together they could bind a policy to a city. You adjusted your platinum pin, a subtle alignment. The morning was still young, and then your assistant's phone lit up, vibrating against the leather blotter with a soft, insistent urgency. She glanced down, then up to you, eyes narrowed. Chief, you'll want to see this. She turned the display. A live feed. Unofficial, shaky. A slow pan across the lobby as two uniformed officers entered through the revolving doors, flanked by a small cluster of curious onlookers, and one familiar face you hadn't expected to see so soon. The guard from the checkpoint. He was walking toward the security desk, hat in hand, flanked by someone from internal affairs. The kind of composition that meant a conversation you hadn't scheduled was about to begin, with the entire building watching. You set your bronze folder down like a chess piece placed with quiet precision. Bring them to Conference B, you said, and start the recorder. The mayor blinked. Now, you said, voice even. Clarity prevents misinterpretation. You reached for the watch's side button and felt the click anchor the moment. Outside phones rose. Inside procedures tightened like well-made knots. The story of the day pivoted, away from assumptions toward documents and consequence. And what came next would silence the casual doubters more effectively than any speech. But what came next would also test whether the city loved order enough to keep it honest. Conference B was smaller, all business. A pale oval table, matte screens inset like sleeping eyes. A wall of smoked glass that reflected everyone back at half opacity. Your platinum pin glinted in the dimmer light, a single star against charcoal wool. You set the bronze folder on the table with deliberate care, aligning its city seal with the grain. Your assistant moved to the panel, toggling the room recorder. A discreet red diode blinked alive. Internal Affairs arrived first. Detective Rusk, sleeves rolled to the forearms, and Lieutenant Hale, cool as a ledger. Behind them came the lobby guard, posture squared, hat clutched in one hand like a prop he wished he could vanish. Captain Ames slipped in last, closing the door with a patience that felt rehearsed. Chief, Rusk said, nodding. Appreciate the time. Clarity is never an interruption, you replied. Hale set a slim case on the table, clicked it open, and removed a thin tablet bracketed by a leather frame. We'll walk through the lobby event. Fast fare on record. The guard swallowed. His eyes found the bronze folder, then darted away. Before we begin, Ames said smoothly, I've asked legal to join by speakerphone. Optics here are delicate. The intercom purred to life. Legal's voice as precise as a scalpel. Present. Rusk looked to you. Permission to proceed? You nodded, steepling your fingers near the engraved watch, its second hand a calm, relentless sweep. Hale tapped the tablet. The lobby camera feed filled the wall screen. Monochrome quiet, morning light like poured milk across marble. You at the turnstile, the guard's hand lifted in stop. No sound, just the choreography. Exchange of words, the guard gesturing. Your assistant arriving with the bronze folder. The subtle pivot when the word chief crossed the air. Simple misunderstanding, Ames said, eyes on you, not the screen. Happens. Misunderstandings are classrooms, you said. This one will teach procedures. Hale paused the video, pinched to zoom on the guard's face. The instant comprehension dawned. There, she said, recognition. Rusk slid a form across the table to the guard. Your report, please. Speak plainly. The guard's voice had gravel in it now. I followed protocol. No badge, no entry. She gave a name. Wasn't on the appointment list. I advised the private meeting upstairs. You also blocked a sealed folder containing the transparency charter, you said evenly. A charter you were trained to prioritize when presented by any executive carrying the city seal. His jaw worked. I didn't see the seal. Because you were looking at the person, your assistant said before she could stop herself, then bit off the rest. She busied her hands with the remote as if settings could absorb her misstep. Rusk's gaze cut to you. Chief, with respect, would you mind stepping outside a moment so we can get an uncolored statement? A stillness pricked the air, small but pointed. Out, from your own meeting room. Ames didn't blink. Legal didn't breathe through the speaker. Hale watched the recorder's red light as if it were a heartbeat. You placed your palm flat on the bronze folder, felt the raised city seal under your skin. The chief stays, you said softly, and the record reflects that the chief stays. Rusk's pen hovered, noted. A humiliation neat as a paper cut. The request had been the kind meant to shave authority in public. Gentle, procedural, performative. You let it hang, then closed the folder and slid it an inch toward center, claiming table space as if it were jurisdiction. The watch ticked. Phones hummed in pockets like restrained arguments. Hale restarted the video. From 40 seconds. The receptionist's laugh, silent in the feed, ripples visibly across her shoulders. The janitor's mop pauses. Two visitors pivot for better angles, phones rising. The guard's hand makes a firm stop. Your mouth moves, calm, contained. The guard shakes his head. The assistant enters like a punctuation mark, the bronze folder extended. Recognition, parting, you pass through. Hale stopped the feed. That's the event. Ames interlaced his fingers. So we issue a quiet memo about verifying identities and we move on. Not so quiet, you said. We write it for the public, too. Legal spoke into the room. Chief, are you suggesting a public-facing training note about security policy? That's unusual. Transparency, you said. We can demand it of the street and deny it at the door, or we can live it everywhere. Choose. Rusk's pen scratched. The guard shifted. Your assistant's eyes flicked to the smoked glass wall. Through its dim sheen, the silhouettes of staff collecting outside looked like shadows testing the edges of a story. One shape held a camera. Reporters had drifted in from City Hall steps, magnetized by rumor. Ames's smile thinned. We should also address the tone of the interaction. The guard's intent was correct. Protect entry. Intent is a preface, you said. Impact is the book. Hale set her tablet down. Agreed. We can draft corrective training and require a brief refresher. 15 minutes of protocol review at shift start. It's simple. Rusk looked between you and the guard. Do you want a formal reprimand? Entered Chief. The guard's shoulders tightened. A visible wince he tried to swallow. He hadn't been cruel, just careless, protocol applied without context. The humiliation was already in the oxygen. Adding ink would make it permanent. You let the watch count 4 seconds. No reprimand, you said. A written apology to the office will suffice, and a memo acknowledging that leadership can appear without escort. Something softened in the room. The guard's exhale broke like someone letting go of a rope. And one more thing, you added. We'll install signage at security listing the exact documents that guarantee entry. Badges, seals, appointments, and charters. No guesswork. Ames sat back as if you'd moved his chair for him. Understood. Your assistant glanced at her tablet. Chief, the lobby clip has crossed to 2 local blogs. Comments are active. You didn't reach for the device. Let it breathe. We will beat speculation with documents at noon. The intercom crackled. Legal cleared her throat. On that note, procurement pinged me. The fleet maintenance contract is queued for auto-renewal at 12 noon. I recommend caution about optics if we freeze it on your first day. There's no better day, you said. Freeze it. Ames shifted. Chief vendors will howl. We'll be accused of politics. Then our audit will be math, not politics. And it will be public. Your assistant slid a printed email across to you. A pre-authorization from the Federal Liaison for Pilot Expenditures. Signature block neat and lethal. You opened the matte black case and drew out the Black Centurion card. Set it on the table. The metal clicked lightly against wood. This purchases time, you said, not toys. We buy audit hours, storage integrity, and independent oversight. You'll all have dashboards by end of week. Council, too. Rusk studied the card as if it were a badge from a different alphabet. Hale smiled, small, approving. The conference phone chimed. Another line joined, communications. Chief, media has a 2 o'clock window. If we want to steer the narrative, we should anchor it around policy. We can pre-brief the press pool at 1. Prepare packets, you said. Charter, procurement framework, training memo, signage draft. Post them on the city site at 12:05. Ames rubbed an invisible spot on the table. Chief, you're loading a day with a lot of precision. Precision keeps days from bleeding into each other, you said. You lifted the watch toward your ear as if listening mattered. It always did. We'll walk to the lobby together at noon. The memo goes on the wall while the cameras are up. Your assistant's screen pulsed again, this time with a subject line that hooked the room. Subject, fleet vendor, urgent courtesy confirmation. She flicked the message to the wall display. An email from a vendor rep, confident tone dressed as concern, asking whether the long-standing relationship would be honored per historical understanding. Historical understanding, the friend favor pipeline procurement had hinted at, disguised as efficiency. You let the word hang like a stale curtain and then drew it back. Reply, you said. Thank them for their note. Inform them that an independent audit begins at 12. All legacy privileges suspended pending review. Ames coughed, then thought better of what he was about to say. Hale glanced to the smoked glass. Outside, the silhouettes had grown. Reporters shifting forward, phones lifted higher, security feeds catching angles. Pressure gathered, polite, insistent. The building itself seemed to lean in. Russ capped his pen. We're done here unless there's more. There is, you said, rising. The watch caught the chandelier's frost light and scattered it in crisp fractions across the table. You placed both hands on the bronze folder, opened it, and slid 2 documents toward the center. One, the transparency charter with the mayor's signature like a bold underline. 2, a pre-signed suspension notice formatted with blanks for name, rank, badge. No one spoke. This, you said, tipping the charter page with a finger, is the framework that moves us forward. And this, your finger tapped the suspension form once, is what waits for anyone who tries to drag us back. Ames finally broke the silence. Are we anticipating resistance, Chief? We're acknowledging it, you said. And we're training it. Hale's mouth twitched in what might have been relief. Rusk studied your face like a puzzle he was beginning to enjoy. You closed the folder, the city seal imprint catching under your palm like a pulse. Bring the guard in at 3 for his apology letter. Copy it to his file as commendation for taking training correction professionally. Let the public see that correction here is not punishment. It's progress. The guard blinked rapidly, unsure whether he'd been spared or knighted. Yes, Chief, dismissed, you said gently. He left with Hale and Rusk, shoulders lower, hat no longer an anchor. Ames lingered. Vi may, Chief. He waited until the door clicked. You're moving fast. Some will call it theater. You lifted the Centurion card and slid it back into the mat case. No theater uses receipts this clean. He considered. And if someone higher decides speed is a problem, you met his eyes, rules. I write the rules you pretend to enforce. You let the line sit, not as a taunt, but as exact calibration. It didn't need volume. It needed memory. He gave a slow, reluctant nod, the nod of a career officer rearranging an internal map. I'll have my lieutenants ready for the walkthrough at noon. Good. You tightened the pin at your collar, a ritual more than a correction. The platinum winked once, bright as intention. The door opened. Your assistant returned, breath quick. Chief, the council president's office just asked for your remarks text. Also, the press pool is staging by the rotunda. And procurement. One more email. The vendors' council wants a call. Put them on hold, you said. They can watch the audit calendar populate in real time. You picked up the bronze folder, the weight familiar, the seal's edges biting pleasantly into your fingers like purpose. Through the smoked glass, the lobby resolved from silhouettes into shapes, reporters adjusting tripods, citizens pausing beneath the atrium's light, security's eyes moving with new attentiveness. Phones recording, security feeds clear, procedures tightening. You checked your watch. 11:42. Enough time to write one sentence that would shape the next hour. You dictated to your assistant as you walked. Respect is law before it's a rule. Today, law meets daylight. Down the corridor, the mayor waited near the rotunda with a smile that understood both performance and policy. You didn't need him to sell this. You needed him to stand near it. Standing near is what cameras needed to understand a city's hierarchy had chosen a side. At the threshold, you paused and let yourself feel the morning land. The humiliation had been small and public. The escalation would be precise and public. The reveal would be factual and public. This was how you built a culture. Not by writing mission statements, but by composing days that could not be misunderstood. You stepped toward the atrium light, the platinum pin flaring once like a star coming out from behind cloud, the bronze folder tucked under your arm like a verdict waiting for its microphone. By noon, the rotunda had become a breathing thing. Echoes of footsteps, low conversation, the faint buzz of camera lights warming against marble. Reporters arranged their microphones in cautious lines. The city seal shimmered behind a temporary lectern. You stood a few paces back, bronze folder tucked beneath one arm, watching technicians test sound levels. Check 1, 2. Clear feed. Roll in 30. The mayor spoke with staff near the stairway, voice trimmed to politeness. He saw you and gestured. Ready? You nodded. The air held that half-second of wait right before a decision turns into history. Your assistant whispered, live stream up in 20. Council logged in remote. Departments watching. You adjusted the platinum pin at your collar. The metal felt cooler than before, steadier. This was the same building that had stopped you a few hours ago. Now it waited for you to speak. The mayor opened the press briefing. Today marks the first full implementation of our city's transparency initiative. Our new chief will outline details. He stepped aside. You crossed to the lectern. The microphones captured the soft click of your heels. 3, then 2, then silence. Faces lifted. Staff from the lobby, officers lining the balcony rail. The same security guard near the wall with his new training badge pinned high and visible. Good afternoon, you began. This morning we experienced what this initiative is meant to correct. Uncertainty about authority, uncertainty about access, and uncertainty about accountability. So we're changing that. You opened the bronze folder. Pages caught light like slow flashes of lightning. This, you said, holding up the first document, is the Transparency Charter. It guarantees public access to policies that affect every citizen. From this moment, all security and procurement protocols will be visible on our city portal. Every contract, every dollar, every rule. Cameras clicked in rhythmic applause. The feed operator signaled live. The second document, you continued, is an immediate audit order for the fleet maintenance contract. No suspensions yet, just light. Light fixes more than punishment ever could. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Reporters exchanging notes, phones already composing headlines. You saw Captain Ames at the side railing, his jaw easing. The mayor folded his arms, calculating and quietly impressed. You set the documents down and met the lenses head-on. I promised the council that our leadership would never hide behind doors. This morning a door slowed me down. The staff who did that followed what they understood as protocol. Our job is to make sure understanding matches truth. Behind you, the city seal glowed blue-gold in the sunlight streaming through the rotunda dome. We'll install posted guidelines at every checkpoint, create a mentorship line for new officers, and publish our internal ethics workshops. These are not punishments. They are mirrors. For a heartbeat, the rotunda was still. Then softly, someone began to clap. It spread, first from the upper balcony where younger cadets stood, then through the hall until even reporters joined in the measured applause that fills spaces built for echo. You let it crest once, then raised a hand. Respect is law before it's a rule. Today, law meets daylight. The phrase landed exactly where you wanted it to. Direct, quotable, calm. Cameras caught the flash of your platinum pin as you stepped away from the lectern, the mayor moving beside you for the formal handshake. A journalist called out, "Chief, about the earlier video, any comment?" You turned slightly toward the voice. It's already public. So is the policy that grew from it. That's how progress looks in real time. Another question. What message do you want citizens to take from this? That leadership listens and learning isn't weakness. We all work for the same daylight. The press conference wrapped itself in motion. Cables coiled, lenses lowered, murmurs dissolving into applause again. You walked down the rotunda steps to the central floor, where the bronze plaque of the city's founding charter lay set in marble. Your reflection hovered over the old motto, "By integrity we rise." Your assistant approached, tablet in hand. Feed numbers climbing. Commence positive. Even the blog's flipped tone. "Let them," you said. "We'll earn every view." She smiled, then hesitated. "Captain Ames wants a word." He stepped forward, the earlier steel gone from his voice. "Chief, the team's ready to move the signage into place. Would you like to unveil it?" "Let them hang it," you said. "It belongs to everyone." He nodded. Understood. As crews moved, the guard from the morning waited near the archway, hat against his chest. You met his eyes, offered a small nod. He returned it, grateful but composed. The mayor leaned toward you. You turned to stumble into a headline about reform. Nicely done. Not reform, you corrected softly. Reminder. From somewhere in the crowd, a phone chimed with a breaking news alert. You caught a glimpse of the headline on a passing screen. City chief turns morning mistake into policy model. You allowed yourself one quiet breath of satisfaction. Not triumph, balance. The day's rhythm had come full circle. Misunderstanding transformed into lesson, tension into blueprint. Above, sunlight burned through the dome's glass like a verdict made of gold. The building seemed brighter for it. You stood at the center, bronze folder closed, platinum pin warm against your skin. And somewhere in the hum of cameras powering down, you could almost hear your father's steady voice. Paper is slow, but it outlives the shout. You smiled. Yes, Dad, you whispered under your breath. It outlived the morning. By the time you returned to headquarters, the echo of the rotunda applause had become a low hum across every corridor. Screens in offices replayed your words on a loop, captions scrolling. Respect is law before it's a rule. Some watched out of pride, some out of curiosity, a few out of self-defense. Your assistant walked beside you, tablet lighting her face. News outlets have the full feed. Council's trending the clip with the charter link. Procurement's phones haven't stopped ringing. Good, you said. Let the light do its work. The elevator doors opened onto the operations floor. The shift room fell silent as you stepped out. Reports waited on clipboards. Half-written notes froze mid-sentence. You gave a brief nod and crossed to your office. The glass walls, meant for transparency, suddenly felt like theater lights. Everyone could see everyone now. Inside, the same bronze folder lay open on your desk, flanked by 2 new stacks of documents. Audit requests already filed by departments that wanted to show cooperation. The machine of bureaucracy had begun to move, but this time it moved with purpose. Your watch ticked quietly. The rhythm steadied you. Hold your composure, and you hold the room. An email alert blinked. Subject: Fleet Maintenance Audit Preliminary Findings. You opened it. The first lines told enough. Duplicate invoices, unverified parts, a chain of approvals stamped with digital signatures that shouldn't exist. The numbers curved into patterns too familiar to be accident. You printed the summary and slipped it beneath the bronze folder. Not anger, evidence. Paper is slow, but it outlives the shout. Captain Ames appeared at the doorway, hat in hand. Chief, may I? You gestured him in. He hesitated before speaking. About that vendor contract. We found what looks like ghost billing. It goes back years. Some officers might get pulled into it. Then we pull them out with facts, you said. Not rumor. He exhaled, the sound half relief, half defeat. Never thought I'd see a first day like this. Neither did I, you said, meeting his eyes. But now we start counting from today. He nodded and left, the door whispering shut. Outside, afternoon light slanted across the precinct courtyard. Reporters still hovered at the gate, their reflections glinting in glass doors. Every question they would ask tonight already had an answer, waiting in the public document portal you'd just opened. Transparency wasn't a slogan now. It was a system that refused to sleep. You sat for a moment, letting the quiet stretch. The hum of air conditioning, the faint chatter from the bullpen, the tick of your father's watch, all merged into one steady pulse. The intercom buzzed. Your assistant's voice, Chief, Council President on line 1. Put her through, the speaker crackled. Impressive rollout, Chief. The council appreciates the speed. Just one thing, vendors are nervous. They'd like reassurance this isn't a witch hunt. It isn't, you said. It's bookkeeping in sunlight. A pause, then a soft laugh. You're going to be popular and terrifying at the same time. Both are temporary, you replied. Integrity lasts longer. When the call ended, you looked again at the monitor feed from the lobby. Officers greeting citizens, security guiding visitors with renewed precision. The same guard from the morning offered directions to a family, his posture open, his smile easy. The change had already begun to write itself into posture and tone. Your assistant re-entered. Media wants a closing quote for tonight's broadcast. You thought for a moment, then said, Tell them the city learned how respect looks when filmed in daylight. She smiled, typing. Perfect. You closed the bronze folder one last time and locked it in the drawer. The platinum pin at your collar caught the last ribbon of afternoon light and scattered it across the desk. Outside, sirens rose somewhere distant. Not alarm, just the daily rhythm of duty. The city was still imperfect, still human, but for the first time in years you felt its heartbeat match your own pace. Deliberate, visible, accountable. You stood, straightened your jacket, and whispered toward the quiet office. Some lessons cost millions. For us, one morning was enough. The watch ticked once more, steady, unhurried, and the city kept breathing. Evening pulled a long shadow through the city, bending sunlight into amber on the precinct glass. What had begun as a rumor at dawn was now the headline on every feed. City audit exposes years of waste. New chief leads transparency drive. The hum of coverage replaced the usual end-of-day chatter. Inside your office, the lights dimmed to a softer hue. The bronze folder sat open again, this time surrounded by fresh reports, budget adjustments, staff commendations, and one sealed envelope from internal affairs. You opened it carefully. A single page. Confirmation that the ghost billing trail pointed to 2 senior contractors and 1 deputy director, who had already tendered their resignations. The department had started to cleanse itself. Your assistant appeared at the door, expression half exhausted, half elated. "Chief, we just got word from procurement. The frozen contract canceled. The funds are being redirected to the oversight program." You nodded. "And the vendors? They've issued public apologies, promised cooperation." A brief silence followed, the kind that feels earned. You leaned back, let the chair creak. "Good. Let's make the apology letters public with the audit results. No edits, no summaries. People should see exactly how accountability sounds." She hesitated. "Isn't that a bit cold?" "Truth doesn't need temperature," you said. "It just needs air." She smiled faintly, then placed another document on the desk. Final note. Council approved a commemorative training, mandatory, citywide. "It'll be named for your father. The quote you used today will hang over every entrance." You looked down. The mock-up of the plaque read, "Respect is law before it's a rule." Today, law meets daylight. For a moment, the office blurred. You saw your father's weathered hands again, heard the simple weight in his voice. Paper is slow, but it outlives the shout. You stood and crossed to the window. From here, the city looked smaller, streets weaving like careful handwriting, lights blinking to life one by one. Somewhere below, the same guard from the morning escorted a family to the lobby's new sign. He paused, straightened it, and you caught the glint of pride in that simple motion. The intercom clicked. Captain Ames's voice, steadier now. "Chief, training memos distributed." Staff response positive. "Thought you'd want to know. Some of the younger officers asked for copies of your speech." You smiled. "Give it to 'em. It's theirs now." He hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, Chief, I was wrong about your speed. We needed it." "Appreciated, Captain. Go home. Tomorrow we start slower and sharper." You ended the call. The building settled into its night rhythm. Elevators sighing, computers powering down, the murmur of cleaners in the hall. The city outside pulsed with ordinary noise again, the kind of noise that meant systems were working. You gathered the bronze folder, slid the last of the day's papers inside, and locked it in the safe. The platinum pin caught one more ribbon of light, and for the first time you didn't adjust it. It sat exactly where it belonged. As you stepped into the corridor, your reflection followed in the glass. A reminder, not of rank, but of responsibility carried quietly. You walked past the framed city charter and touched the edge of the plaque now mounted beside it. "Cool metal, engraved truth. Respect," you murmured, "is the only law that doesn't need enforcement." You exited through the lobby. Staff at the desk straightened as you passed, not from fear, but from awareness. Phones lowered, smiles lifted. Outside, dusk poured across the plaza. You took one last look at the glowing rotunda dome behind you and let the night air erase the weight of the day. The city was learning. It would stumble again, as all institutions did. But now it had a blueprint made from patience and proof. You climbed into your car, engine low and steady, and drove toward the horizon where streetlights began to bloom like tiny verdicts of hope. Somewhere a reporter's voice echoed through an open radio. One of the city's toughest first days ends with an unexpected lesson in grace. You allowed yourself a small smile. "Some lessons cost millions," you whispered. For him, one morning cost everything. For us, it bought change. The car merged with evening traffic. taillights threading into red constellations. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new eyes waiting for daylight. For now, the city breathed and you let it. Stories like these happen every day. Subscribe to never miss the truth behind the power. Night settled over the city like a calm verdict. The glass towers that once loomed with distance now glowed softly, their reflections rippling across dark streets. Inside your car, the hum of the engine faded beneath the quiet satisfaction of completion. You'd spent the day turning a mistake into a blueprint, humiliation into policy, and silence into clarity. The bronze folder rested beside you on the passenger seat, scuffed now at the corners, a reminder that progress was never polished. You thought of your father again, his steady voice threading through memory. Hold your composure and you hold the room. Tomorrow would bring questions, resistance, maybe even setbacks. But tonight the city breathed a little easier, its light steady and honest against the skyline. You had not shouted, you had written. You had shown that dignity, when documented, becomes change. You smiled once more, watching the streetlights fade in the rearview mirror, and whispered the quiet truth that began it all. Respect isn't granted, it's proven, one decision at a time. Stories like these happen every day. Subscribe to never miss the truth behind the power.